Welcome aboard this week's podcast of Dudes Dish Disney. Get ready for amazing attractions across America. Beer halls and bar rooms, banquets and beverages, a collection of characters and colleagues.
No cupcakes.
It's Dudes Dishing Disney. This episode of Dudes Dish Disney is sponsored by Corner of Maine. If you're a dude or dudette looking to wear Disney style, Corner of Maine is the only answer. And now your hosts, the dudes of Dudes Dish Disney.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Dudes Dish Disney. Joining us today is our producer and resident tech dude, Jonathan.
What's going on, guys?
Also joining us is our co-host, Ryan. He is the number one Disney dude.
What's up, dudes?
And I'm Congo Carl, former Jungle Cruise skipper. You know the rest. What's up, dudes?
What's going on?
What's happening?
I am so digging our new sponsor. Sent some threads, and I am loving it. Right? Shout out to Corner of Maine, our new sponsor, hooking us up.
Yeah, these are some great tees. Not gonna lie, I've got a couple now, and they are super comfortable, super nice to wear around, and can't wait to wear them in the parks.
I just added my third, so I guess I can say I'm a fan at this point.
Yes, I got to take some pictures with my granddaughter who calls me Skipper. So can't wait to see her expression when she sees me wearing this. So
I'm kind of glad that your grandkids call you Skipper and not Congo, because I just think it'd be really weird if they were like Congo, or worse yet, Papa Congo. That sounds way too much like a WWE wrestler name. Like, I don't think we would want that. So Skipper works better.
Papa
I'd be
Congo
afraid
would
he'd
be
break
like,
a hip if he got in the ring there. That's really concerning.
Kind of looks like Ric Flair, though.
hey,
He does. I can see it.
woo! Yeah, Papa Congo. That sounds like Ernest Hemingway. You know, that's kind of like.
I think we went in different directions on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely explains. Yeah, that's what you describe that.
That's my love of drink. Is that what you're saying, Jonathan?
Sure, we'll go with that too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Carl, there was a WWE/WWF wrestler back in the day whose name was Papa Shango. So that's where I'm pulling that from.
Okay.
Google it. It fits you. It fits
Excellent. You bastard. Okay. Hey, and this week's episode topic is brought to you by Ryan's creativity and his genius. Ryan said sometimes the last minute Walt Disney World trips are the best. You know, these spontaneous, quick, drop of the hat moments when you say, let's go this weekend. So we thought we'd talk about last minute, impromptu, spur of the moment trips.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And it's also a massive travel trend right now. It's very interesting because when we got into our revenge travel period for a while, things were pretty planned out and booked, and people were like, hey, I want to set this up, I want to go. But really this year, things were a little bit slower in the middle part of the year. And then lately, you know, as we approach the end of the year, people are like, I want holiday travel. I want to get ready for the winter months, right? And a lot of last minute planning is happening right now as we're recording. So a massive travel industry topic, which is why I thought, hey, maybe we can combine it together and let people know Disney is a place you can do last minute travel if you want to. So I thought it would be fun for us to chat about.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think, other than I think we've talked about, you know, adult travel and being more spontaneous in the parks, right? Which we tend to do more when we're with each other than we do probably when we're on our own tending to our families. But you can do it. And I think what the nice thing is that you get the must-dos, you know, the gotta-dos out of your way, and you're kind of going with the flow. and you get to see a different side of what the parks have to offer. So we thought we'd go through a few tips and ideas. One of the things I think is if you do this kind of impromptu, and you're only going to be there a couple of days or a couple of nights on short notice, is you can really maximize park hoppers in a case like that, right? Because you can carefree bounce around. One park's too crowded, or I want to go here. The classic one is, hey, I can go to World Showcase every night for dinner. Not necessarily because we know all the great restaurants are there, but who knows what festival's going on, and you may just want to try out some new things you've never tried before, right? And because it's typically open a little bit later than some of the other parks, depending on the time of year, you can always say, yeah, that's going to be my late night dinner or snack spot, right? And so, get me into World Showcase 2 or 3 nights in a row, and I'm really happy on that short trip.
I think it's a great time for that because once you start getting into the fall and then winter months, you see some of the better festivals, right? You see Food and Wine. So that's one that's very easy to do last minute. If you don't have to worry about reservations. But then right after Food and Wine, you jump right into Festival of the Holidays. And then right after that, you jump into Festival of the Arts, which in my opinion is pretty underrated when you get into the January, February months. And then there's the never-ending Flower and Garden Festival that happens after that. I feel like Flower and Garden lasts like 3/4 of the year sometimes. But that, in terms of the festivals, I think the 3 that we have coming up or are in the process of right now are the best ones to do when you're doing last-minute trips.
Yeah. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, everyone has the understanding that Disney, you got to plan. It's a blast when you go and you don't really have plans. Ryan, you and I did a trip a while back that was pretty spontaneously planned. It was one of those, hey, who wants to go to Disney with me? I'm going here. Who can make it work? And it just happened to, I literally said to my wife, hey, I've got PTO days left. They're not getting used anytime other than now. I can afford it. I'm going. And she kind of looked at me. I was kind of crazy. And I'm like, I'm not going alone. And my wife just kind of was like, okay, sure. Yeah, you do you. You're crazy, but sure, go ahead. Have fun.
And I think that's one of the starting points on that, right? Is that when you're dropping the planning and doing that, if you're going to book a last minute trip, you really have to be flexible, starting with the rooms, right? You don't know which hotel's available, or, maybe it's not available the 2 consecutive nights. Maybe you have to do a split stay if you're going to do a short trip and, 2 nights and 2 nights at 2 different places because of what's available. But I think it also affords you an opportunity it's a quick trip. So let me try a hotel I've never tried before. And because I'm only going to spend a night or 2, maybe I'll splurge and do a deluxe. Or because I'm only going to be doing a night or 2 and I'm going to be in the parks most of the time, I don't care. Let's do a value, right? So I think it would push people towards trying something they haven't tried. And then either it's a check off their bucket list, or it's I really like it. I want to come when I can spend more time, right?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is when I do the last minute trips, which I tend to do more often because my day job might push me down to Orlando or whatever the case may be. I might take a day or 2 at the beginning or the end of one of those business trips, and I might go down there and say, hey, you know what? I've never stayed at X resort before, right? I can't tell you how many resorts I've stayed at for 1 or 2 nights just because I had never stayed there before. And like you said, Carl, I just wanted to check it off my list, right? Going somewhere like Grand Floridian. Grand Floridian's not normally my speed. That's just not saying anything bad about it. It's just not my kind of hotel normally. And that's, for me, if I'm going to go experience it, check out what's new, those 1 or 2 day last minute trips are the ones that I like to go do those on, so I can experience and see what's new and talk about it with my clients or whatever the case may be, but also take advantage of it, right? So the resort can make a big difference in the last minute trip. I have clients that like to stay at the Grand Floridian on a last minute trip, and I may or may not have talked about this on the show before. They don't even go in the parks. They just like all the restaurants. They like the monorail. And what they like to do is sit in the lobby with the piano playing, right? They just enjoy that. Like, who would have ever thought Disney could be a place that you could go and actually relax for a few days, you know? But you can do that on a last minute trip in a nice deluxe resort like that.
Yeah, and the other thing you need to be flexible with is your dining plans, right? Because we know, your tried and true favorite may not be available. But that's okay, because there's 300 different places to dine across Disney World, and you'll find something. And again, that flexibility, and you probably find something local to your restaurant or to the park that you're going on, and you'll be just fine with it. Or, as many people do, okay, I can't get a reservation, I'm just going to graze, I'm going to snack, and that's the way I'm going to approach my day. So.
There are certain restaurants. There are certain restaurants where there's going to be last minute availability, right? And that's the thing. And the beauty of it is I can't tell you how many restaurants I actually put on my list of places I like to go back to because I found them because they were last minute restaurants. Spice Road Table is one of those for me. You can always walk into Spice Road Table, and as long as you're into that type of diet, that food is really good. And it's a beautiful spot right on the lake, and you can hang out there. And if you get it at the right time, you can watch the fireworks from there or the show from there, right? Like, it's a really good spot. Or Liberty Square Tavern, right, is another place that you can go into and almost always just walk into and get some great food. I've had clients come back and be like, why is that not on more people's lists? That's a great meal, And it's like, because, the word gets out and people like what they like, and the internet groups blow up over Be Our Guest, and that's it, right? Like, that's the end of the story.
One of the things to think about, there's Disney World, unlike other places, doesn't have any last minute deals, right? Last minute great deals. The pricing's still going to be the same. But, and people are in this mold of having a plan. But one thing, if you want to do an impromptu vacation that, without planning and not worry about the planning, is you could really book a Disney cruise at the last minute and be totally in luck, because once you check in online, everything's done for you. And, everything, your meals, everything's planned. It's kind of a one stop, right? Now you can change things on the fly once you're there, but talk about a package to get last minute and not have to worry. Your plans are made. You're in the dining rotation. You're going to be fine. You're good to go.
That's what I was going to say. The dining rotation makes all the difference in the world on a Disney cruise, because you're going to experience the restaurants. You don't have to make a reservation. Sure, are there ones that you do need reservations for? Absolutely, right? But again, like, that's if you want to go above and beyond. If you want to have a meal with the princesses, or if you want to have the Toy Story meal, or whatever the case may be, if you're on that type of cruise. But the other thing about a Disney Cruise Line is a lot of times they actually intentionally hold things so that once you walk on board, you can go to the front desk, to the concierge or whoever at the front desk, and make a reservation that's opened up that day, the day you board. That's a pretty common thing to do. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. That happens all the time on a Disney cruise, where you're there and you can walk up and reserve that. Not that we're going to do Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or anything, but I got a daughter. She might, I got a son who probably might be dressed up as a knight too. I'm not going to lie, but even still, it's a really. I didn't know we were going to talk about Disney Cruise Line here, but you're right, Carl. It's a great option.
So, John, you have to envision this concept a couple years when your son's a little older, right? One fun thing to do, and one of my clients did on an impromptu trip, is they said, you know what, we're doing this trip, but the kids are in charge. So because it's a short time span, the kids didn't have to, but they picked the hotel, they picked the restaurants, they picked one day of no restaurants, just snacking around, junk food at the theme parks. They picked the rides, when to go, and they picked some things that are not the headliners, but for example, they picked to spend the day at Animal Kingdom, doing all the Wilderness Explorer activities and earning the badges
Hmm.
because they had watched the movie. So can you imagine, John, in a couple of years giving your son control and say, okay, you pick for my vacation what we're doing?
That would be very scary, especially with Finn being crazy. I feel bad for the other one. I feel bad for Dakota being 3 years younger. Poor Dakota would just be literally the following brother. Be like, okay, sure, yeah, let's go, yeah. Finley would be all over the place. I mean, it would be fun as hell, but it would definitely be a very interesting experience, to say the least. Worth doing by all means.
And my point is, the kids pick things that we don't, we kind of go to our favorites and everything, and all of a sudden your kids open your eyes to something maybe that is, not the headliner, but still to them very much a part of their memory.
I wouldn't do it with my kids because they would just be like, let's go to the pool. All right, what do you want to do tomorrow? Let's go to the pool. Like, okay, bring no park tickets on this trip. Everybody bring suntan lotion.
Yeah, well, think about the money you'd save in park tickets, right?
Oh, man, yeah. Let's go to Pop Century and we'll just hit the pool for 5 days in a row. No problem.
There you go.
Hey, I mean, that pool's not bad.
I mean, if that's what they did, I might be like, hey, let's go to the Marriott down the street and just pretend we're at Disney. If you just take it to Disney Springs for dinner, they won't know the difference.
The beers are less at the Marriott than they are at the Big Blue Pool, though. So
the rooms are less at the Marriott, too. So.
Look at we're talking about Disney, but impromptu vacations happen all the time. One of the things here up in New England is I plan impromptu trips around fall foliage time, because you never know when the peak is, and different, whether you're going to Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, you never know where it is. So they're kind of watching it and saying, okay, next weekend we want to go, right? And it's challenging sometimes to get the rooms and resorts, but they're out there, and you certainly can hook people up last minute with a stay somewhere. And again, lots of options. I think that, let's go West Coast for a minute. Disneyland, right? Huge inventory of good neighbor hotels all around Disneyland. So always something available. And those sometimes get some great prices.
Mm-hmm.
So
oftentimes they do, especially the ones that are a mile or a mile and a half away, which is still walkable. It's still 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a horrible walk.
Yeah. And you're right, Carl. There's some there that are, there's some that they're good neighbor hotels, which means Disney vetted them. They're clean, they're safe, they're, whatever, but they're cheap. They're dirt cheap. And you feel it when you're in the room and they're small and there's no amenities, but who cares, right? Like,
but you go and buy the ticket at the front desk and avoid the line at the park, and you're in,
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's a place, and I'm sure you've done this before too, Carl, that I wind up at every once in a while, because the Anaheim Convention Center.
Exactly.
Which is a mile or a mile and a half away, right? So I've made that walk more times than I care to admit. But it's like, you get there and you're at the Marriott that's there, or at the Hilton that's there right next to the convention center. Massive hotel properties. Actually, the Marriott that's next door has a beautiful pool in it.
Pool, yeah.
It's got a great restaurant. It's got a little quick service pizza place inside of it, and then the Hilton that's on the other side has like a Pizza Hut and a Taco Bell in the basement of it too. And but it's one of those places you get there and you can just get up, buy tickets right there in the hotel, and walk down to the parks if you need to.
The courtyard a little further down is right next to a couple of good steakhouse chains too, that are right there too. And there's and one of them, and there's also a Japanese hibachi restaurant there. So there's lots to pick from. That, again, short walk. And it's easier to walk in Anaheim than it is in Orlando. There's less humidity.
That's the somehow. There's less humidity. That's the somehow. Right. Even when it's 110 degrees there, it's better there than it is at 90 degrees in Orlando, Yeah.
And I think that's a good time too on those, trips like that, to say, let me eat outside of the park. Since it's like Disneyland, it's really tough to get sit-down reservations, right, on short notice, because there's just less inventory with less places to go. So I think that's okay to kind of do a meal or two outside the park. And then when you're inside the park, go quick serve, use mobile order. You know, it's a good time to, on the impromptu trips, it's a good time to practice your skills on mobile ordering food, so that when you're doing it on a busy week in the peak of summer, you're an expert at it. So I find that too. On the impromptu trips, you're trying things and doing things, or putting to practice some of your skills in Disney World to really pay off, because you know the systems, you know how to get, lightning lanes, etc. So you really put all you kind of have known and learned from the bigger trips as a consumer to really good use when you only have 48 hours.
Yeah. The other thing that's really nice about Disneyland being a last minute destination is that the parks are open longer. They're open earlier and they're open later. So Disneyland Park usually opens 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and usually goes to 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So what you can get a lot of times is Californians, and you can see this at a Dodgers game. You don't even need to look at Disney for this. Californians don't tend to show up for rope drop, right? And it's not as touristy out there. So you really only get the resort guests that are showing up for rope drop. So the parks tend to be pretty quiet, especially in off season. In January, they're like empty, right? But they tend to be pretty quiet for the first hour of the day. And you can knock out all the Fantasyland rides, the Mr. Toads and the Peter Pan. And, we can talk all those tips, right? But you've got that. And then the parks will start to pick up, and around lunchtime, they'll get pretty busy. And then, through the afternoon. But then after dinner, because it's a lot of annual pass holders, they go home. So then from like 8 o'clock until midnight, it's empty again. Mm-hmm. So you can really take your time throughout the day and knock out Disneyland in a full day versus Magic Kingdom. No chance, right? You're going to need 2 days to knock that out. So, it's a great spot if you want to go and last minute vacation, you want to do something where you take a 4-hour break in the middle of the day and go back to your pool. Disneyland's great for that, because when the locals come, you can skip out and go to the pool, and then you can come back when they pull the parachute and you can enjoy the rest of your day.
Makes you kind of want to pack your bags and go this weekend.
I'm considering it, actually.
It would be awesome. It really would be an awesome thing. I don't know how well that would fly, but
yeah, my boss at my day job just told me that we might need to fly out to Southern California to meet one of our distributors. And I was like, I know where they are. And I'm like, ooh, I might just have to do that. Yeah, that's no problem.
Can we make that meeting on a Friday or a Monday, please?
Yeah. Oh, no. My sister's out there, so I'll fly in before that anyway, or after that, and spend some time with her. That's no problem.
There you go. Well, there you have it, folks. Anything we missed on last minute impromptu trips?
The only thing I would say is, don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. And if I will say this, if it's your first time going to Disney, maybe not a last minute trip, right? I don't think you're going to feel like you get it. If you've been there 1, 2, 3 times and you're willing to just go and experience it at a more low key, relaxed pace, it's awesome. It can be really a great time.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, any of these last minute trip ideas, by all means, do them. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger. It's going to be well worth it. You're going to have a lot of fun doing it. It's so worth doing it.
Well, there you have it, folks. Call your travel planner today, right now. Get that last minute trip in.
Call 888 Skipper Congo.
Oh, dear God. I didn't realize we had that cheesy 3 a.m. Infomercial happening. Dear God.
Papa Congo.
Later, dudes.
Later, dudes.
Later, dudes.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Dudes Dish Disney. Please check us out on social media. On Facebook at Dudes Dish Disney. On Instagram at Dudes Dish Disney. On X at Disney_Dish. Please check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe at Dudes Dish Disney. This episode of Dudes Dish Disney is sponsored by Corner of Maine. If you're a dude or dudette looking to wear Disney style, Corner of Maine is the only answer. Check them out at cornerofmaine.com or on social #MainStreetDudes.